Good evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Hilaal Live. My name is Firas Patel. I would like to thank you, the viewer, for staying with us. Of course, thanking my colleague Luqman Shadrack for taking you through that first part of the show. Now, the 2023 Corruption Perception Index report shows South Africa is losing the fight against corruption as it continues to slide downward among countries perceived to have serious challenges with public sector corruption. The report, which relies on the expert opinion of business people, experts, think tanks, risk companies, and global data sets, shows South Africa scored 41 out of 100, the lowest score since Corruption Watch started tracking the country's public sector corruption in next 12 years ago. Now, joining us now to unpack this, I'd like to welcome a familiar face here on Hilaal TV, Accountability Now's advocate Paul Hoffman. Advocate Hoffman, good day. Thank you so much for joining us from a beautiful Nysda.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I'm prepared to give away a little slice of my holiday to speak to you and your listeners.
Yeah, I wish I was there with you at Nysda, but we'll take in it from spirit. Advocate Hoffman, 41 out of 100, that would be close to an F, which is an absolute failure. That just shows that there really are serious challenges in trying to curb corruption in the country right now.
Yes, on this particular index, if you score 100, you have a perfectly clean government. If you score 0, you have a perfectly horrible government. And we are on the scale at 41, which is the lowest score we have ever had. It is a score that is worse than the worst score that Jacob Zuma, when he was president, had. He managed a 43 in 2013. So we're moving backwards. We're regressing in relation to corruption. And at a time and in a presidency where the president came to office on an anti-corruption ticket and in which he has promised to implement the recommendations of the Zondo Commission of Inquiry into state capture, it is a very unfortunate development and one which is symptomatic of the slide towards failed statehood on which South Africa has really been going since the beginning of the first Zuma presidency in 2009. We've got to do something to reverse the manner in which we are scoring on this index, because it informs things like business confidence, direct foreign investment, the state of our economy, the availability of jobs for the jobless, the ability to find the finance to start the national health insurance scheme that the government has in mind. And while so much of public money is being frittered away on corruption, the looting of corruption, the unauthorized activities that take place, we are not in a healthy position at the moment.
Advocate Hoffman, you mentioned President Cyril Ramaphosa comes in. He's meant to be this caped crusader of anti-corruption. But then he has members within his very own ruling party, the ANC, who are implicated in the Zondo Commission into state capture. And it's more of a huff and puff scenario of trying to obviously ask them to step aside, which obviously is part of the ANC constitution. That has to be one factor, isn't it, in this index that really shows that even within his own party, with those who have been charged for corruption or have been implicated, that there is a lack of action being done there.
Yes, the pundits, and I'm not a political scientist, but I read what they say. The pundits say that about half of his cabinet ought to be facing criminal charges. President Ramaphosa himself has got his parlor problems, and he's got recently revealed problems in relation to his directorship of MTN, which is said to have been involved in the financing of terror groups in Nigeria. So all of those things suggest that the new dawn that was promised us in 2018 when Mr. Ramaphosa became our president are simply promises that are not being fulfilled. The renewal of the ANC has to go hand in glove with the removal of its members who are involved in state capture and other forms of serious corruption. But it just doesn't happen. Nobody gets suspended. Nobody gets to step aside. Nobody ever faces criminal charges. Nobody ever pays back the money, owns up, like SAP did the other day. All of those things do not happen because a culture of corruption with impunity is abroad in the land, and our leadership is not only not prepared to do anything about it, our leadership is implicated in it.
Advocate, the state security agencies that are fighting, obviously, crime, the likes of the Hawks and the NPA, they would come out and say, well, we just don't have enough funding to go ahead and do our job properly. Would that be a fair assessment? And do you feel that this obviously contributes to the index scoring South Africa so low?
Yes, I think both the NPA and the Hawks were gutted during the process of state capture. And the Hawks themselves are neither operationally nor institutionally in a position to fulfill the role of seeing off serious corruption. They are part of the South African police. They are answerable to the Minister of Police, who we all know is very famous for his role in those World Cup soccer leases in Durban and Pretoria. So you cannot expect that there will be the sort of eagerness and capacity and willingness to get involved with cleaning up the levels of serious corruption in high places that you would get if an independent institution were in place. The same applies to the NPA. The NPA is not an independent entity, in spite of the Constitution saying that the law should be brought in line with the idea that they operate without fear, favor, or prejudice. The NPA is under the final responsibility of the Minister of Justice. He has to concur in the policies they make, and his Director General of Justice is the accounting officer of the NPA. The NPA is, in fact, run as a program in the Department of Justice. Now, that is not in accordance with what the Constitutional Court required of the anti-corruption machinery of state in South Africa. That court looked at our international treaty obligations, and it looked at the duty of the state to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill the human rights that are guaranteed for everybody in our Bill of Rights. And it said, what we have doesn't work. What we need is a specialized entity, properly trained people, independent of executive interference, fully resourced in guaranteed fashion, and secure in its tenure of office. We don't have any such thing, in spite of a court order to that effect. And that means that the downward trajectory, the regression of South Africa continues, and the corruption in high places is just enjoyed with complete impunity.
One final question, Advocate. We've got about 2 minutes. South Africa is on the grey list. The IMF has downgraded the economic forecast for the country. We have SOEs that are just, neither here or there. And it's a election year. There is no magic wand right now just to fix it in the next 2 to 3 or even 4 months.
No, I would agree with you. The magic wand gets waved on the day that the people of South Africa go to the polling station and vote with their heads instead of their hearts. Once you vote with your head, you will be able to rid South Africa of the corrupt cabal which is taking us down the road to oblivion, and replace that corrupt cabal with politicians who take the rule of law and their obligation to uphold the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the enforcement of the obligation to respect, protect, promote, and fulfill our human rights via service delivery. And in that way, we can recover from the downward trajectory and hopefully get a better score in next year's Transparency International Corruption Perception Index.
Advocate, I'm going to let you enjoy your holiday. Do have a good one. Thank you so much for making time for us. Much appreciated.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Always a pleasure having you, Advocate Paul Hoffman from Accountability Now. After the break, we continue with Hilaal Live. Do stay tuned.